Hello, I'm Sean Cheek and welcome to my Piano Sight Reading Boot Camp. These are the 8 fundamental principles that I will be referring to throughout my piano method. Now my piano method focuses on sight reading, and we need to have a definition of sight reading here. So let's look at the first point. Sight reading is the speed at which one perceives and executes music notation. Now notice it's the speed at which you do that. Perceiving involves seeing the musical page, processing the information, understanding it, and the executing involves transferring that to the keyboard and actually carrying it out. So there's the perceiving and the executing, and we're going to be working on the speed at which you do that. Now, some people can perceive, some people can execute. But how many people are really fast at that? That's what we're going to be working on, making you fast at sight reading. Increasing that speed at which you can see what's going on the page and then actually carrying it out. That brings us to our second point. The better the sight reader, the more they can play in a shorter amount of time. Now think about that. If you're really fast at perceiving and executing music notation, you're not going to have to work on something as hard. You're going to be able to get a piece from the music store, sit down and work on it, play through it a couple of times, and you have it. All right? And then you're going to be able to play more things instead of just one thing at a time. And that's very desirable. This speed that we're after will increase by playing many easy pieces instead of few difficult ones. All right? We're not going to take one piece and beat it to death till it's absolutely perfect and until you've memorized it, and then move on to the next one and do the same thing. That is going to be contradictory to our purpose here. All right? There is a time and a place for memorization and perfection, but not here. We're trying to make our sight reading better. All right, so what we're going to do is play many easy pieces. We're going to keep moving, keep moving on. We're going to play one piece, get it down pretty good, and move on to the next one. And we're not going to have them be that difficult. Because if it's too difficult, it's too hard to read, you get bored, you get frustrated, and you want to quit. All right? So we're not going to do that. We're going to stay with many easy pieces. Point number 4, the more a piece is memorized, the less effective it becomes as a sight reading tool. Now think about that. As you learn a new piece, those of you who have had some lessons before, you probably know this very well, you start to memorize it. And memorization is not a bad thing, per se, but if you're working on sight reading, it's not going to help you. Because the more you memorize, the less you have to look at that sheet music, and you're not really reading it anymore, you're doing it from memory, and we're not getting the use we need out of the piece when you start to memorize it. So as soon as you kind of start getting it memorized, we're going to move on to something else so that you're reading again. Okay? Now we'll go back on that old piece and work on it some more eventually. But we're going to always keep something new in front of you so that you're working on those sight reading skills. The next principle here. Trying too difficult a piece and an insistence on perfection are sight reading killers. Okay? We're not going to push forward to something too difficult until you're ready for it. We're going to stay, like I said, on easy pieces. And we're going to do a lot of easy pieces. Don't rush ahead to something before you're ready. Okay? And don't be playing other things outside this piano method that are too difficult. We want to stay within what we're able to do. And we're not going to have an insistence on perfection. Perfection, you know, is great for some things, but not for this, not right now. At least not, well, I'll put that in the next point there. But we're not going to have something perfect before we move on. We're going to have pretty good. Okay, I played this one pretty good. Let's move on. Okay? Because if you stay on it too long and you insist on perfection, you get into that memorization cycle and you're not working on the sight reading anymore. Okay? So don't insist on absolute perfection, okay? Pauses are okay when you're learning something. You have to pause to figure out what the next note is. That's okay. Those pauses will disappear as we become better readers. All right. So let yourself off the hook. Next point. Emphasize quantity, not quality, at least not yet. All right? We want quantity. We want lots of pieces. Now, we don't want them to be, just totally sloppy, but we don't want to be too hard on ourselves. All right? The quality will improve as we become better readers altogether. Remember, we're not working on playing every little piano piece in my method perfect. We're working on becoming better readers so that we can play anything we put in front of us pretty well the first time. Okay? So that's the goal. Quantity, not quality. So that's an emphasis. We do want some quality, but keep it in check. Next point. Required practice. You must practice if this is going to work. All right, I need your practice. And how about 30 minutes a day? If you can do that every day. I know there are some days that we can't, but let's make that our goal to do it 30 minutes a day, every day, at the same time every day if possible. Because what happens is our bodies like routine. And if we can get in a routine of doing something at the same time every day, somehow our minds and our bodies get prepared for that activity, and we'll do better at it if we can make a routine and have, every day at the same time, if possible. Now, don't do too much. You can really get gung-ho and burn yourself out. So 30 minutes is a good starting place, okay? Any less, we're going to lessen our chances. So try to give me 30 minutes a day. Last point. The practice sessions that we will have. Now, a practice session is, anytime you're sitting down to play out these daily practices that you're doing. The practice session always have these 3 parts. Okay, we're going to have 3 parts to these every time. Very crucial to this. Okay, don't just do what you want to do. Make sure you do what I'm laying out here for you to do. The first part of that 30 minutes is going to be repertoire. Now, repertoire is what you can play right now. All right? Right now, what can you play? Now, when we first start, it's going to be one song or one piece. But we'll be building that repertoire and having 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and more pieces that you can play right now. They may not be perfect, but that's okay. At least they're 10 pieces that we have in our repertoire. So the first part is going to be spent playing through those pieces. The second part of the 30 minutes is going to be new material, reading something new, or at least fairly new. Okay? And then after you get that, whatever the new material is, when you get that to a certain point, then that'll become repertoire, and we'll move on to another new material eventually as the weeks go by. Now, the third part of the lesson that is very important of your practice sessions is what I call random note reading. Now, it's random because the thing about music is it has melody, and people can memorize melody, and they can use their ear and kind of figure out by a little bit of guessing what some notes are instead of really knowing what the notes are. And we want to avoid that. So the random note reading is going to be the flashcards that we use. Because if you take a bunch of random flashcards and set them out, and then they're not going to make music, just random. And you're going to play through those, and you can't use anything else but your knowledge of note reading. And then we mix the flashcards up and do it again. So you see why it's random. It's not a song. It doesn't have a melody. And that's very important to take that part out of the equation so that the only thing you rely on is your note reading ability. All right, and that's going to be the say it, play it technique that I say. You have a note. You need to be able to say it so that you know and I know that you know the name of that note, not just by guessing and hitting the note. You need to know the name of it, and playing it, of course, is we know where the location is on the keyboard of that note. All right, so here are 8 fundamental principles. Very important. Keep them in mind. I'll be mentioning them throughout the video series. Now we are ready to begin in the second video of actually playing